Hey everyone, welcome to episode 7. I'm here again answering some of the questions that have been posted in the Reddit, some on Facebook groups from our perspective as a private practice that is focused on having a world-class practice, having a world-class culture, and having a dream practice for our owner doctor. And for us, a dream practice is fee for service, is self managed. Associates love their associateship. The team finds meaning in their work, and our patients are fans who want to be part of the practice. And ultimately, rather than sucking the life out of the owner, it brings life to her. And so, all of these questions that are always posted are just answered by random people. So I'm answering some of these questions, but I'm answering them through the lens of how we see things in our practice. So I have a couple questions here that I'm going to answer today. And the first one is, I feel discouraged owning my own practice because there's a new DSO popping up every day in town. Well, I can feel your pain. For years, Melanie has felt discouraged and unhappy and stressed and miserable in her 30-year career. When she first opened a practice, she opened a practice in her small town just outside of where she grew up back in Kentucky. And she had it for 3 or 4 years. And I had a corporate job. I wasn't really around to try to help. And we were so young. And she wanted to sell it. She's like, I don't want to do this. It was so stressful. And then we opened a practice together in 2006. I left my corporate job and we opened this one, and we continued to go through, even with me here, we continued to go through these long phases of where she was miserable. And so I can definitely understand any dental practice owner feeling discouraged for a variety of reasons. This one's specifically saying a new DSO popping up in every town now. We're in Southwest Florida. Our practice is in Bonita Springs. We sit right between Naples and Fort Myers. And in the last 10 years, corporate offices, DSOs have exploded in our area. It's like everybody wants to come to Florida. And when you look at, I was looking at where DSOs are located around the country by state, and Florida just has a tremendous number of DSOs. And so for us, we have them all over the place. Literally, there's one right here. And then there's another one right over here. And then there's another one right here, if I'm pointing in the right direction. And then if we expand out, they're just all over the place. So I get it. So here's how I would answer this statement. It's not really a question, but it's a statement that I feel discouraged owning my own practice because there's a new DSO popping up every day in town. This was posted somewhere to get answers or people to respond back. And so what I would say is this, is one, if you're a fee-for-service practice, this really shouldn't bother you. You should be running your practice in a way that's so differentiated and so clearly different from the DSO that it's not really an issue with regard to patients. I can tell you where it's been an issue for us is with regard to employees. So imagine in Southwest Florida, there's 100 job openings. Well, there's always was 120 or 130 employees. When all these DSOs exploded into our market, it was like there was, 600 job openings, and those job openings immediately ate up that 120. And so we're at like negative 400. And it has been really hard to find team members and employees since the explosion of the DSO, but we've never really had a problem competing with DSOs. As a matter of fact, we'll have had patients when we first went out of network completely with insurance, and when we first started dropping plans, we would have people say, well, no, I'm going to have to go where my insurance is taken. And then they end up coming back a lot of the time, probably most of the time, to be honest. And so the DSO competing with or a private practice should never happen. As a private practice, we never compete with them. We never have a patient go, I want to go to that DSO down the street. Those patients don't find their way into our practice because of the way that we market ourselves and our brand out on the street. If you just want what your insurance covers, those people when they call our office, they figure out pretty quickly it's not exactly who we are. So it's not really a problem that we have. Now, if we were in network with all the plans, that would be different, because then we would be the private practice and the DSO offering the same things for the same fees because we have all the same plans. So this was actually us for many years. And here's what I will tell you. We still didn't really compete with DSOs because people knew us and they knew, well, Dr. Pugh takes our insurance. There's no way I want to go over here. Like people on the street, our brand was already out there to the point of, and when I say our brand, I don't just mean what people heard about us. I mean, when they went to our website, when they called us on the phone, they could tell there's something different. So what I would say is if you're feeling a lot of stress from DSOs and fighting for patients, you really need to look inside your practice, because you shouldn't even be competing with DSOs. You should be on a whole nother level of patient experience. You should be on a whole nother level of the type of dentistry that you're doing. You should be on a whole nother level of how you're, presenting treatment to your patients. And it really shouldn't be something that you compete with patients on. And I will say, and I don't do this, I guess I'd be lying if I said I didn't do this podcast to try to grow our business, because I do, but I really have a heart for sharing. And I will say, if that's you, and I don't want to just sit here and, kind of like push our training programs or push our training programs out there. But if you're in private practice and you're going up against DSOs and you are having not differentiated yourself from the DSO, you need our course. You need our courses. And so I would go back to Pugh Leadership Academy, sign up for our course. Right now, our world-class culture course is live. And I would focus on that. I would really focus inwardly on what your patients are experiencing, what your team is experiencing, how your leadership is affecting the practice, what you're marketing. And I would really lock down on improving all of that to differentiate yourself from the DSO. And it really shouldn't be that hard. So next question, how much does the dental market fluctuate over time? I feel like it's really bad right now. Well, I will say right now in August 20th, 2025, it's not great. I can tell you that. It's not great. And we have seen it go. Melanie's been practicing for 31 years. We've been in this practice for just working together for about 19. The market does go like this. And I would say the number one thing you got to do is insulate yourself as much as possible from market fluctuations. How you manage your money is one thing, how you manage your practice. And I will tell you, the same as the first question or same first statement, one of the best things that you can do to insulate your practice from the market is be so good that patients trust you and say yes to treatment. And I don't mean because you're a good salesperson. I mean because you treat them right. You give them a great experience. You don't sell them stuff they don't need, so that when they do need it, they go, yes, yeah, I'll say yes to that. And, insulate yourself as much as possible from the economy that way, because the market does. It goes up and down. There's good times and bad times. And right now, as we're sitting in 2025, I think a lot of us were excited about, and this has nothing to do with politics, new administration. A lot of times the administration comes in and the economy will, get hot or spike a little bit. And we haven't really seen that. In our world, people, and let me say this, I'm not a Wall Street banker, but I have an MBA and I climbed the corporate ladder before I left that to work with Melanie. So I look at market factors and talk to people to try to understand what's going on in the market. And what I would say is what goes for dentists is you can look at inflation, or you can look at interest rates, or you can look at wars, or you can look at all these things. But ultimately, it all boils down to consumer confidence. The last administration printed a bunch of money, inflation goes through the roof, consumer confidence pulls back, people stop spending money. In 2028, 2029, credit market, or 2008, 2009, housing bubble, popped, credit markets froze, Wall Street tanked, people held on their money. And so we had the last administration crank inflation. This administration comes in leading with tariffs. We had the war, and we had some talk around Greenland and Canada and things. People get nervous about their money. So what I hope is, if you're feeling this pressure right now, is that consumer confidence will turn, beginning to hear some things about the not embargoes on a podcast, I forget the word, our trade situation with other companies. Things are starting to work themselves out. Tariffs starting to work themselves out. And so what I'm hoping is that consumers, the war in Israel is over. Hopefully the war in Ukraine will be over soon. And all of those things will hopefully get people feeling better about the economy. There's a potential for deflation to come in. That's not good either. So right now, I think we're kind of sitting in a place where you might call it stagflation even. I don't think the market's going to get hot this year as we're sitting here in August, and maybe not next year. So got to think about, what can I do to insulate myself as much as possible from the market? And you do that not necessarily when the market is bad, but when the market's good and everything's going and everything's cranking. That's when you have the best opportunity to insulate yourself from the hard times. And with either of these questions, I really think that our course on world-class culture is very helpful for you if you're in either one of these situations. You can find that on PughLeadershipAcademy.com. Let me know what you think in the comments. Subscribe and like and do all of those things so that we can get our material out there more and more and more in front of not just dentists. Honestly, the things we talk about apply to any sort of private practice medicine or mom and pop business, to be honest. We're talking about the human side of business, and that's a universal thing. So appreciate your listen, or if you're on YouTube, appreciate you watching. Catch you on the next one.